Welcome in, everyone, to the It's Official podcast alongside Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk. Each week, we take on 5 hot topics in horse racing. And, Jeff, sometimes they write themselves. Sometimes we got to find some things. It was a little controversial on Saturday around the racing world as tote issues, connectivity issues, and getting wagers in on the Tampa Bay Derby became difficult for a lot of players. I know it was frustrating. We'll talk about that some on this telecast, but really for us, that Triple Crown Trail and the results of the Tampa Bay Derby are going to be very important to talk about as well.
We have to. It was tough because they wouldn't publish the chart. So unless you saw it, you really didn't know what happened. I mean, the charts were delayed because they didn't have the payoff. So rather than print a chart without the payoff, they just didn't print the chart. In fact, I didn't print the chart for like 2 days. I finally found it somewhere.
Yeah, I've got it now.
Yeah, I got it now. But I was disappointed in the way that because it was such a slowly run false race, Tampa Bay Derby. But I thought the winner went okay. I mean, it wasn't a throwout. Sometimes you get these preps and you know, hey, that's you're not going to figure these horses in any running. I think the winner might be okay. He's improving. We had good racing out here in Santa Anita, though, for sure. Saw a star in the making. Not only a maiden that looked great, but also a filly who might be certainly a Breeders' Cup type filly. And so, I mean, all around the country, we've got things to talk about. I'm very interested in how your Triple Crown rankings are this week. I want to see those and see how I view them. And we've got I don't like to spread rumors, but yeah, I really do. So we got one of them that we can talk about too.
I'll just give you a little tease. There's a change at the top this week for the first time in several weeks. So we will get to that in just a bit. We start things out on a positive note because there were some Queenish type performances by the ladies at Santa Anita over the past weekend. The West Coast Girl Power was on display at the Beholder Mile. We saw that one in a big matchup. We saw Kinza dominate in stakes company as well in the Santa Isabel, and on the turf, Maduro looked fantastic. So we've got some really rising star fillies on the West Coast. Let's go first to the Beholder Mile. You picked her on top in our Friday handicapping show. Sweet Azteca made you look good, sir.
The Dare Manor has to get closer and is doing so along the rail. She's now taking second with a quarter of a mile to go, but has to catch Sweet Azteca, who stretches out today and opens up a 3-length lead. Sweet Azteca with plenty in the tank. Adair Manor clearly into second, and then Green up in third. Inside the 8th pole, and Sweet Azteca has a 3-length lead. Adair Manor is trying so hard with those big strides, but it's Sweet Azteca proving she's the real deal all the way in the B. Wayne Hughes Beholder Mile.
She looked good sprinting in allowance company. She looked good there, 2-turn miling in the Grade 1 Beholder Mile. How good can she be, Jeff?
I really have to praise Michael McCarthy here because after winning this race, a Grade 1 in her first start around 2 turns, the natural inclination will say, well, we got a mile. I think she could go a little farther. And then maybe, because that's where the money is and the
right.
older mares going to distance to ground. And instead he said, you know something? We're going to back her up now. Okay, we got the mile out of the way, but I don't know if she really wants to run much farther than this. I mean, on a speed bias track with an easy front running trip against a mare who has a history of leading a race at Dare Manor, last 8th and 12 and 3, pristine trip. I think this was her day in the sun in terms of 2 turns.
Yeah.
Instead, Michael says, I'm going to back her up. I'm going to run her short. My goal is going to be 7/8 in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Right. It makes so much perfect sense. And really, it's kind of rare sometimes when you have a trainer with a head on his shoulders who realizes what reality is. And I love this filly. I do, but I think he's doing the absolute right thing. And I think the win was predictable everything kind of fell into place for her, which is why she won. Plus, she's really good. 103 by her number tells us she's already a Breeders' Cup type of thing. I really like the way Dare Manor ran. She was 5 clear of everybody else and didn't get the best of runs. But this was a legitimate race. Some really nice older fillies and mares were way up the track. They were all spread out, which is like to see in a good race. And I think it's going to be a productive race. And I think now that There's a game plan for Sweet Azteca they're going to follow. I think they'll run them. There's a Derby Day race, I think, 7/8 for fillies and mares. I think we'll see that up there. And she's already won at Churchill. I think Sweet Azteca has got a chance to have a sensational campaign this year as a 4-year-old.
You know why Michael McCarthy is so grounded in this decision? He knows it works. He did it with Cece. She stretched out and won this race. He cut her back and became a champion sprinter with her multiple times. So he knows the routine with these kind of fillies. He got the mile. He got the candy here, just like Cece did. She later went on to win 2 turning again later in her career. Maybe we'll see her someday going long again in the right situation. But Sweet Azteca cutting back like Cece did years ago to become a top filly and mare sprint candidate makes a lot of sense. She looks awfully good. She's won 3 out of 4. Lightly raced 4-year-old filly by Sharp Azteca. So that's Sweet Azteca, the first of the West Coast girls showing the big power this past weekend. Kinza took over where Adara Manor came up a little bit short in the Beholder Mile. Her stablemate Kinza had no such issues in her race in the Santa Isabel. She continues to just roll through these 3-year-old filly stakes races on the West Coast.
As the field turns for home, Kinza in command, turns for home with a 4-length lead that keeps increasing. She's a tempest. Where's my ring? Outside Ultimate Authority continues to gain some ground, but Kinza is completely in control. And this is another tour de force for the undefeated Kinza, who could not have possibly been more impressive in winning the Santa Isabel, wrapped up by more than 5 lengths. Where's My Ring was second. She's my Tempest in front of Ultimate Authority and Shiloh's Mistress.
Santa Anita Oaks will make a lot of sense, but I'd like to see this filly in the Ashland at Keeneland. I think she'd be really tough in that spot. She's by Carpe Diem, of course, who was a major 2-time stakes winner over the dirt surface there at Keeneland. She's bred to like it there. I'd like to see her in the Ashland and see what's happened. A race that always plays the early speed. The Ashland's a speed favoring race. She's got it. She basically goes wire to wire in her 3 wins so far. Santa Anita Oaks or Ashland, something like that for Kinza. And then maybe where we would see her, Black Eyed Susan. Who's to say?
Yeah, maybe. The thing about Kinza is you're in the 92 buyer number, which is better than most of the 3-year-old colts are earning right now. Not all of them. I mean, the biggies are running, but I think even Sierra Leone is not much different than the 92 that Kinza has been earning. Obviously, there's no Derby or Kentucky Oaks for Kinza, but again, with 3-year-old fillies, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there'll be races for her in the summer. At Saratoga, perhaps, wherever Bob wants to take her. But right now, I think they'd probably like to keep her undefeated. There's a certain aura when you have an undefeated filly. Yeah. I mean, if she runs back in the Santa Anita Oaks, which seems logical, I don't even know if they'll fill the race.
Who's going to warm her up? You're right.
Fillies go for black type for grade 1 placing. They'll be in the race, but they won't be trying to win. They'll be trying to finish second or third. So, I mean, this is a very, very good filly, and she's taken heat. She looks like I don't think she's in need of the lead type. I just think that she's so much better that she just goes, because why bother taking her back? This was another grade 3 event. She figured to win. She was 50 cents on the dollar, never looked like a loser. And I would imagine that if she comes back in the Santa Anita Oaks, you'll see basically a replay, because I don't know who else is out there that would even bother to try her. But they would be trying to finish second or third to get that valuable grade 1 type.
Right. As we see 3 for 3 with Kinza in the record, another 3 for 3 filly at Santa Anita showed up on Sunday, 3 for 3 after her win in the China Doll Stakes. Maduro looks like a good one on turf for Peter Urton.
Quarter pole, Zona Verde on the outside. Antifona. Maduro is still very much in it. In between them, they line up with a furlong to go. Zona Verde, and now Maduro kicks it into high gear impressively. Handwritten to the 16th pole, and she bursts away. Maduro will remain undefeated. A stylish victory in the China Doll.
Got some good races on the West Coast for these fillies on the turf. You don't have to travel to go find spots, but there's some rich races around the Derby, Preakness, and Belmont schedules as well. So what might we see with Maduro, and how good can she be?
This was just a listed stakes, but when I was handicapping it, I said, wow, there's some really nice fillies in here. Zona Verde, Irish bred fillies, good. Antifona just comes off a stakes win at Santa Anita down the hill. I know Mo Fox Given had come off a very impressive allowance win. This was a legitimately graded type of stakes race. Maduro won it for fun. Her first 2 races, she won by a head and a neck. But this time she was just kind of toying with the opposition, one off by herself, last 8th and 11-2. Now, you wouldn't think that Honor Code would get a grass horse, and you'd be right. But this is out of a mare by English Channel. I think that's why they run her on the grass. And so she's perfect now in 3 starts on turf. Good moving. She trains well. I don't know whether Peter Urton will ever get enticed by trying her on dirt just because there's more money and more opportunity there. But if she stays on the grass, whether it's here or somewhere else, and there's some really good grass races for fillies in the spring and in Kentucky and New York. This filly, who is really, really good. I mean, really good. If you ever get a chance, go back and watch her maiden win. I've never seen this happen. She was totally left at the gate and came from nowhere to win, going 5/8 on the grass, which you just don't do at Del Mar.
Right.
That's when you knew she was good. Now she's stretching out, longer the better. So Maduro, outstanding, and she has got grade 1 races in her future. I'm not sure what surface, but eventually she's going to be at that level, if not already there.
Yeah, Del Mar Oaks is one of those summertime races that you probably just put a circle around for a filly like that and say, let's try to plan between here and there and see what she might be able to do when we get to Del Mar in the summertime. All right, Tampa Bay had its big day, Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday. It was Tampa Bay Derby Day, 12-race program. Everything was going along swimmingly through the first 10 races on the card. And then the wheels just fell off with the technology. People at pay grades far above you and I, and certainly academic levels far higher than ours to understand the communications lines, the fiber optics, everything that go on. Things went haywire, and it ended up really being a gut punch to Tampa Bay Downs on their big day. A big loss in handle, obviously, for them. Probably in the neighborhood of $5-6 million in handle loss for Tampa Bay Downs with what happened over the weekend. The multi-race wagers, payouts, and things like that, subject to rules of the association, some state rules, things like that go into deciding on how they were going to pay out the pick-end races that ended with the Oaks and then, of course, with the Tampa Bay Derby. None of it feels great as a horse player. I mean, that's just the fact of it, right? I mean, it feels raw in that sense that if you were alive to, the payout leg, you saw what happened and you still didn't get the payout that you were looking at. It became an all and it became a watered down payout. It's a tough one to accept. If you were one of those people who were wrong on the last leg and you got to pay out because it was an all, I guess you take it and smile. And there are a few times in racing where things actually seem to bounce your way as a horse player. So giveth and taketh when it comes to the horse players in the fallout from the wagering on the Tampa Bay Derby, Jeff. But one of those scenes that you just don't want to see on a big day. We've seen some tote outages with individual companies and ADWs and things like that on big race days over the years. But for the actual host track, this is a really rare situation where a race is run non-pari-mutually like this. I can't think of it happening in a big race. We've seen some individual horses run for purse money only and not pari-mutual, Modern Games amongst those. And this kind of feels Modern Games-ish in terms of the way the public felt after the race. It was a big race. It was a big day. And then you're just kind of left with that hollow feeling.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a horse player who do you get mad at? I mean, and even if you got mad at something or somebody or some entity, I mean, what good does it do anyway? It's just frustrating. I mean, It's just, and it was obviously not preventable. If it was preventable, it wouldn't have happened, So the only thing that you can hope for is that it doesn't happen again because of something that the companies that are involved in here learn something that, hey, we can't do this, or we have to have a fail-safe situation where if this happens, we're covered. And and I know they had a backup system, but even that failed. So, I mean, it's just one of those, like you say, bad taste in your mouth, and you just have to live with it, bite the bullet, and hope that you're one of the lucky ones that it actually helped, not hurt, in terms of the way it was set up. We did have a very good race, though, the Bay Downs, the Derby, and I at least that part of it was good. Although a little frustrating because they went so slow. I'm not sure how much we can take out of this race, Jeremy.
Well, we are going to talk about that after you see the replay. Jason Beam takes you through the glacial pace and the frantic finish.
Not much pace on 51 seconds. They've really crawled here in the Tampa Bay Derby. Good Money leads them by the 3/8 pole. The lead's a half a length to No More Time, who just got given the cue and went right into the bit. No More Time right up alongside of Good Money. Grand Mo the first, pushed along from third. Domestic Product looms just in behind fourth, 2.5 off the lead as they come to the top of the stretch. Good Money and No More Time. These two into the lane. Domestic Product going to swing toward the 3 wide side. Grand Mo the first, right to his outside. Final furlong time now. No More Time pokes the nose in front. Good Money tries to counter. Domestic Product. Grand Mo the first still in with a chance. Flying is hardened up the rail. A wild finish here. A titanic tussle in Tampa. That's any one of 4 here. They drive the wire. No More Time or Domestic Product. It's between No More Time and Domestic Product.
And it was Domestic Product getting the victory there by a nose. Look, I know the pace was really slow, right? I mean, this is like historically slow. 6 furlongs in, 1:16.21. They came the final mile and a 16th, 1:45.47 for the final time. They ran the Challenger Stakes earlier in the card in 1:43.12. So, I mean, we're talking 2.5 seconds difference between the older stakes horses and these horses. But this was a turf race on dirt, Jeff. They just loped, and then finished. We don't look at turf races and say, well, this was a bad race because the pace was slow. It's just the way that they're run. You know, you don't look at the greats in Europe where they walk and then frantically finish home. The great horses find a way to get there. And I think with Domestic Product, he proved best in this bunch, despite the slow pace. He was of the top 4. He was the one who did the most running with some ground to make up at the top of the stretch and did so and got his nose down on the wire. So, I mean, would you like to see it run more traditionally to try to give you a sense of, you know, how these horses shake out against each other? Maybe, but really, if you're looking at a prep towards the Kentucky Derby, a mile and a 16th where you only had to run the last 3 furlongs, 2.5 furlongs, it's about as good a prep as you could ask for, actually, in the development of your horse if you're looking to keep moving forward like they are with Domestic Product. I thought he did things right here.
Not only did he do things right, which was well put, but he took a lot of dirt in that race. He was bottled up behind horses to his left, horses to his right. If he wanted to move earlier, he couldn't have done it even if he wanted to. He was stuck. And so for him, the race was reduced to a 3/16 of a mile sprint. And I think if you're Chad Brown, you have to be happy that as slow as they went, he actually did produce a good turn of foot. He was not a one-pace grinder. He doesn't have an ounce of grass pedigree in his family, a practical joke out of a mare by Painter. But it's good to know that if he ever wants to run him there, he wouldn't be inconvenienced by whatever pace he might get. Now, though, I think Chad's probably thinking, okay, I like the race. I like the fact that he won. He looks like he'll run long. He switches off nicely. He'll give you a second move. But I got to run him again because I'm not really sure what I have here. And I'm not going to go 8 weeks anyway without running him. So he's going to come back in some race. It could be the Wood. It could be, I don't know, the Bluegrass, wherever it's going to be. And maybe at that time, we'll find out what he's made of. But I'm intrigued enough to keep him on a list of horses to watch. I think he's going to be okay because he showed grit, and I like to see that.
Yeah. Look, he was second in the Holy Bull prior to this. That was an improved effort off of Dull Remsen. Then he improved. I thought this was a better race for him than what the Holy Bull was even. He's moving the right direction. And for a barn that's got some hands to play right now, hooves to play, if you will, Domestic Product on the left, the horse in the center, Tuscan Gold, reported from DRF that he's headed to the Louisiana Derby, which will be in a week plus time, a week from Saturday. So that horse was very impressive in a 9 furlong win in Maiden Special Weight Company, I believe, or was it allowed? I think it was Maiden Special, winning at Gulfstream Park. I like him, Tuscan Gold, quite a bit. And then you've got Sierra Leone, who right now is one of the top 2-3 contenders on just about anybody's list for the Kentucky Derby. So Chad Brown's got a lot going. He's got a 4th horse who's included in this week's Kentucky Derby future wager amongst the 39 individual interests. Chad's hand is loaded. And like you talked about with Domestic Product running again, there are some options which race to go. If Tuscan Gold goes to the Louisiana Derby as expected. Now you're looking at Sierra Leone. Well, Sierra Leone, who ran in the Risen Star, doesn't go back for the Louisiana Derby. He's going to head north. So Sierra Leone probably goes Bluegrass, maybe goes Wood Memorial, and then Domestic Product would go the other spot, right? You would just try to keep those two separated. So what Chad does with A will affect B, I think, in the terms of where his horses end up on the final step of the trail. And of course, if either one of them were to step aside due to injury, illness, that sort of thing like that, it could affect the other horse as well, just going to the most important spot left on the calendar. To me, I think it would be the Bluegrass would be the A spot that Chad would want to go to next. The B spot would probably be the Wood Memorial for those horses, how they would match up. But Chad Brown is loaded right now, and he's got a pretty good hand to play. As for the runner-up in here, No More Time, the horse who had won the Sam F. Davis on the front end. Slow fractions here. No excuse to get beat, really, in this particular spot for Jose D'Angelo. They're going to wait now for the Kentucky Derby and just come off these 2 mile and a 16th races, have 8 weeks layoff. That's asking a lot, but he does have 45 points. He's safely in the field.
Well, I mean, I think the goal is to just make it in one piece to the Kentucky Derby. Rather than maybe worrying about winning it. And I know he's kind of being defensive here about what to do with them. He just, look, these people, they just want to get into the Derby. And if he won one more time, he's not going to be any, I mean, yeah, he could win and that'd be nice, whatever prep it is. But again, my experience with people who have Derby horses is more important to be in the Derby than it actually is to win it. And putting them behind the ball with 2 months off, whatever it is, I don't know. But he's a nice colt. He's a good, useful colt. Sure. I wouldn't mind owning him for $40,000, which is all they gave for him as a yearling. So I have the right to do whatever they want to do.
He's buying out this time out of Baroness Juliet, a Speightstown mare. So he's not bred to be a 1.25 mile horse. He's run the 2 mile and a 16th. So No More Time has earned his way to the Kentucky Derby. He's placed in 2 big preps, winning one of them in points preps. He's got 45 points. By all means, the door is open for him to run in the Kentucky Derby, but not one that's going to be high on many lists. He will be one of the longest shots on the board if he gets to Louisville, as they're planning on going to next. Let's go to our third topic on the board this week, and there's some racetrack rumors. Everybody loves racetrack rumors, Jeff, and probably rumors swirl around the racetrack as good as any schoolyard in America. I mean, the whispers are out there. You hear them often in Southern California. The racetrack rumors here and the swirling talk has to surround Nysos, who was the favorite for the individual interest in the Preakness Future wager. He was number 1 in Countdown to the Crown, my rankings over the past several weeks since his dominant victory in Stakes Company already this season in the Lewis. Where do we go with Nysos now, though, that he hasn't worked since February 25th? What's the swirl? What's the scuttlebutt? This horse has been absent from the work tab for 16 days.
It's funny because, I love racetrack rumors. I even make them up myself sometimes. And I have no specific information on this. I mean, I probably could ask Bob Baffert if there's anything up, but it's none of my business. I don't feel when it comes to that, I just don't like doing that. So I can speculate myself, and whatever happens, whatever is. Now, Nysos was supposed to run in the San Felipe a couple of weeks ago. Right. And Bob entered him and then scratched him. The rumor was that it wasn't his choice, but I don't know if that's true or not. In other words, these horses have to pass a very severe veterinary inspection. If something's not 100% perfect, the vet will say, you can scratch him or I can scratch him. And if I scratch him, he's got to go on the vet's list. So I don't know if that's the case here or not, but if Bob had decided, as he was quoted as saying, that he decided he didn't want to run him, he was just going to wait for the San Antonio Derby, that's fine. But then you'd expect him to, instead of running, having a workout. Well, he didn't work that week.
Right.
Okay. Then the next week comes around, still no workout. Now we're working on our third week, no workout. Would have been tough to work today, though, because the track was closed, but still. So now I'm saying to you, I don't know where he's at. I don't know if there's a problem or not, if there is an issue or not. I can tell you that his hotshot stablemate, May Moon, worked last weekend. If he worked, why didn't Nysos, So all of this is circumstantial. we might be making up something that is much to do about nothing. But I think we'll find out this week, because there will be some cause for concern if we don't see a workout in the next few days, at least by the weekend. Because forget about the Kentucky Derby. We know he's not running there.
Mm-hmm.
But they want to run him in the San Diego Derby, and all of a sudden that's creeping up. You can't run him off of no works in 3 weeks. So anyway, that's the rumor. The rumor is, it's not even a rumor. It's like, what do we know? We don't know anything, but it doesn't look good. It looks suspicious.
No, it doesn't, and it feels a little bit like Locked, where Locked was going to run in the Sam F. Davis. That didn't happen. Then he was going to run back in the race at Gulfstream and Fountain of Youth. That didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Then it turns out he has a knee problem and he's on the sideline and he's out. Usually where there's smoke, there's some fire in this stuff along the way. And sometimes the smoke is just something that starts billowing up from your own suspicion, and not suspicion in that, like, that you have the spidey sense, Spider-Man or anything like that. It's observation. You're looking, and this horse works every 6 or 7 days. All of a sudden they don't show up on the workout tab. All right. Once you might say maybe they clocker missed the workout. Maybe something was up. Maybe the weather pushed them back a day or two. Now you start to miss the week, then the 2 weeks, and you're into the third week. Now there's something going on, as your common sense will tell you, and that horse's own pattern of development will tell you that their pattern of development has changed. And when you observe that, you can put 2 and 2 together. So we are going to have our ear to the ground and see if anything comes up with Nysos over, the next week or two, because as you said, Santa Anita Derby now just a couple of weeks away, really, 3-4 weeks away. It's time. And, there's still time for a horse like that. Fortunately, because the situation with the Derby is he doesn't have to make the first Saturday of May, the 4th of May. He has to make the 18th of May with the Preakness Stakes if he's going to be a factor in there. But you certainly want to see Nysos. And again, you say, well, he worked his other big horses, right? May Moon, who we're going to see in just a little bit. He also worked Muth, Coach Prime. Like, all of his big 3-year-olds were all out over the past couple of days working. And the biggest of the big, Nysos, was not one of them. So we're going to see where the rumor mill swirls and billows with the horse who is the favorite for the Preakness Stakes and number 1 ranked by me in this 3-year-old crop coming into this week. But we're going to take a deeper dive into those rankings in just a moment. Let's go to our Triple Crown tracker next, and 2 topics on the Triple Crown tracker this week. Since there are no stakes races around the country for the 3-year-olds this week, we're going to look at some key workouts via XBTV and give you an updated look at my Countdown of the Crown top 20 list. First, Jeff, let's go to some workouts here. And trainer Joe Orsino was very high on Hades' work in South Florida at Gulfstream Park as the winner of the Holy Bull Stakes prepares for a date next in the Florida Derby.
Well, this was a good work. I mean, we were kind of trying to figure out what kind of race he won, the Fountain of Youth, and it was good, but, we don't know, if that was the real fierceness who showed up or not. And obviously with Chad's horse coming back and winning, kind of franked the form. Mm-hmm. I hadn't watched this horse train. I don't know what I was going to expect here, but he's a speed horse. They broke him off behind another horse. They're going to ask him to finish here, and he's going to finish ridden out. But boy, he comes home quick. I got him on my watch and like 23 and 2 for the final quarter. And the good news about that work was that he didn't pull. He was very relaxed behind that horse, didn't try to engage him early. And he put 10 lengths on that work made from the quarter pole home. I mean, that's a good work, Jeremy. And maybe this colt is, maybe we haven't given him enough credit. But I guess we'll find out next time. But right now, I like what I'm seeing.
The Florida bred who sprinted, then stretched out, and did so with such success in the Holy Bull. Maybe one of the favorites for the Florida Derby, and we'll see him next. Santa Anita Derby, the favorite. Well, we thought it might be Nysos, but maybe it's going to turn out to be May Moon, the horse that we look at for the Santa Anita Derby. You'd have to think maybe the Arkansas Derby as well on the agenda, or the Bluegrass Stakes for May Moon. The Bob Baffert trainee was working solo here recently on the 9th of March this past weekend. That's a difference from the previous week when he was working with Muth and making Muth look pedestrian. They let him out there solo this time and put Muth with Coach Prime instead.
Yeah, and he still picked up company. It kind of worked out there, where if you're going to beat another horse badly, at least have it from somebody else's barn, not yours.
Right.
And this wasn't really a team drill or anything like that, but this colt saw the competition, went after him. Usually Bob will ask his horses out from the wide of the 7/8 pole, as he did here, just to make sure that the colt will finish up and not think the work's over hitting the wire. I got him galloping out 25 in big change. So good work, dead fit. I think that was really good. And now it's just a matter of sitting and waiting. And maybe Bob's sitting and waiting too. Maybe this is going to have to be his Santa Anita Derby horse if the other one has an issue that we're not aware of, Nysos. So I think he's kind of playing it by ear, but it obviously would make absolutely no sense to run them together. So if Nysos is able to make the Santa Anita Derby, then this gold will be on a plane somewhere.
And then there's Imagination, right, who just come off the win in the San Felipe. And Imagination and May Moon were head and head in that a good allowance battle that they had 2 starts back for Imagination. So where they go with Imagination, maybe a Wood Memorial kind of horse or Bluegrass. We talk about some of these same races, Arkansas Derby. Somebody's going to be hitting the road probably for sure amongst that stable, trying to ready for either the Preakness or the Belmont. We're talking a lot with Preakness with Baffert because he's won it a record number of times and really aims for the Preakness. But with the Belmont Stakes, just 3 weeks after the Preakness, probably not a chance that a lot of the Baffert horses would consider running in both. So it's an either or situation because this year's Belmont at Saratoga, just a 1.25 miles, much more achievable for that Baffert speed than the 1.5 mile race that we're used to seeing at Big Sandy. And Saratoga is going to play faster than Belmont and the whole like. So, you know, Baffert with 4 or 5 horses this time of year, they got to separate themselves from the Santa Anita Derby, but they might be separating themselves from the Preakness and the Belmont as well. He's still got a lot of options at this point.
Yeah. Anyway, that colt's looking good, and
Moon,
I mean, he's going to be tough to beat no matter where he shows up. So that's where it is at this stage. We'd have a whole lot of talk about the Derby if these horses were eligible, but without them in there, it gives us a chance to talk about some of the lightly raced or lightly regarded horses in the mix that going to have a chance to shine now as well. So it's still pretty interesting, even without the Bafferts.
So here's how it shakes out for me in this week's Countdown to the Crown Top 20. Be published this Friday, countdowntothecrown.com, horseplayernow.com. Be sure to check that out. I've moved Sierra Leone up to the top spot over Nysos, dropping him because of his inactivity. You say, well, why go to 2? You could go all the way down. I don't like anybody else to move up above 2 at this point, to just be frank with you. I've got to see another one from Fierceness. I've got to see Forever Young run an improved race in the UAE Derby in a couple weeks. May Moon is a horse maybe who should have moved up a little bit more for me, even working very well. But again, we'll see where he shows up. Track Phantom expected to be in next week's race in Louisiana at Fairgrounds in the Louisiana Derby. Dornoch coming off a win that didn't really flabbergast anybody. Timberlake's victory at Arkansas starting to look a little bit better, I think, as we go along. Rebel Catching Freedom's a horse. Maybe we'll see him back. Maybe Louisiana Derby on next Saturday for Brad Cox, maybe heading out of town. Muth, he's another one who might be dropping down. I don't like really necessarily the way he's trained so much over recent weeks, but we know he's got the resume and the talent. The back half of this, Jeff, are a lot of horses who look similarly talented, and they could all make a move by the time we get the first Saturday in May and become your Derby horse that you're kind of looking at. Hades moving up a little bit. Tuscan Gold, the Chad Brown we talked about, who's headed to the Louisiana Derby. I put Domestic Product in at 17, maybe underestimating him a little bit. Maybe he's a little better than that. Want to see another race out of him going farther than the 1 mile and 16th, because again, he's still a practical joke. How far he wants to go will be a question. And No More Time I brought into the top 20 because he has the points to be in the Kentucky Derby starting gate at this point, and we'll leave him in there towards the bottom of the rankings, but certainly not a horse I've got a lot of enthusiasm for when we get to Louisville. What do you say about the top 20?
Well, the ones that are intriguing to me are the unproven but promising and very promising group on the right-hand side of your graphic, 11 through 20. I'm talking about Conquest Warrior, who has no points, but won an overnight winner the other day for fun and didn't even try. Tuscan Gold, I'm not sure how good he is, but he could be really good. Mystic Dan is fresh and now since that runaway win on an off track. I don't know if it was the off track that made him look good. I kind of suspected it might be that way, but until such a time that he goes back to dry land and doesn't run, I think he's really good, at least on an off track. And Deterministic, I mean, he's late to the party, but boy, was he! I mean, he won a race last year at Saratoga, got stopped down, took a chip out of his ankle, I think it was, and then comes back and really, I thought his race in the mud. Again, it's the mud, you don't know, but he showed some quality. I don't know, he's pretty good, and he's good. Yeah. All of those horses are going to get a chance to to show they belong, but they haven't quite gotten there yet. But they'll get their chance soon.
To bring the two Tampa horses into the top 20, the ones I dropped were Drip, who is injured and sidelined a bit, going to get some time off and not be rushed into the Kentucky Derby and Triple Crown Series the way it looks now. So sorry to hear that for a horse who's got a lot of talent. And the other one I dropped out was Tuscan Sky, the Todd Pletcher horse who's won 2 at the Gulfstream meet nicely. He worked in company with Fierceness, and I thought Fierceness made him look bad. Not bad, but Fierceness looks so much better than him, I thought, in the workout. So I dropped Tuscan Sky out of there. He doesn't have a lot of resume to this point with just the 2 starts and no big stakes bids. So that's good news. If you're a Fierceness fan, you had to like the way that what you saw out of him last week on the works at XBTV. And that's why I took Tuscan Sky out. He was kind of like 17, 18, 19 towards the bottom anyway. Needed to make room for a couple in there who's already have Derby qualifying points. So that's the way we shook out the top 20 this week. Now, as we look ahead to the future, our Stars of Tomorrow segment's always looking for that next one on the horizon. We had 2 to pick from last week. And as we finish up here with our Stars of Tomorrow, Jeff's got one and I've got one. We're going to go to both coasts here. We're going to start off with Vlahos, an impressive sprint winner Saturday at Santa Anita.
Vlahos, the one to catch at the top of the stretch. Ball Don't Lie chasing gamely in second. These two are dominating at the 8th pole. It's Vlahos maintaining a 3-length lead. Ball Don't Lie 7 back. Feel the Magic finishing strongly on the outside of Santarena, but it is Vlahos. Vlahos in complete control. Cruises home to win by 5. Feel the Magic and eye-catching second.
That's one where you tap your watch to make sure it's working right. I mean, those were blistering fractions, legit. Not everything is about the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown Series. This is a sprinter to watch.
Tell you what, Jeremy, I had watched him work in the morning via the works on XBTV, and I couldn't really tell because he looked like he could go fast, but he wasn't going fast. Mm-hmm. And you never know for sure how much you're going to get from a colt like this when you ask them. Sometimes they don't go any faster, and sometimes they blast out and stop. So the gamblers out here are pretty sharp when it comes to these kind of horses. Let them go off at 13-1. And as they went into the far turn, I'm saying to myself, okay, I wish I had known this before the race. Because now I know he's not going to come back. He just ran his rivals into the ground. It was a very fast, highly rated race. Now he's by Canthero, so you don't expect him to run much farther than sprinting. He's out of a mare who was a full sister to another colt named Are You Kidding Me, who was a champion older horse in Canada, won a lot of money, $1.4 million. Another horse, filly by an honor code named Core Values, who was a multiple stakes winner, won at Dueling Grounds, the Derby there, a filly. So, I mean, the family's there to go farther, but when you talk about Canthoris, you shouldn't be messing around trying to do anything more than what you're supposed to do, that is sprint. And the other thing about this colt is eventually, and he's a May full, so he's pretty young still. But anyway, eventually, he might get a chance to run on grass, and then you might say, look out. I mean, have you ever seen a Cantheros sprinter who was better on dirt than he is on turf? I mean, maybe there are a few, but most of them are better. So there's some options here. And by the way, this trainer, Louis Mendez, sells a lot of horses. I wouldn't be surprised if this horse shows up in somebody else's barn next. Right. Anyway, he's fun to watch. He's fun to follow. We'll see how ambitious they get next time. I would imagine they'll leapfrog a non-1 as a 2 and go into a stake. So we'll look for Vlahos next time out, wherever it may be.
Now I want to see him go down the hill. I want to see him go 42-4 down the hill.
He can do that. I promise you that.
Yeah. Another one on the grass that we're talking about for our Stars of Tomorrow debuted at Gulfstream over the weekend, named Sweet Rebecca. She's a half Sweet Melania, who's a good turf performer. It didn't start off too well, but it finished just fine. Here's Pete Aiello's Sunday at Gulfstream.
And runners away. Awful beginnings for Sweet Rebecca, 4 lengths slow. At the rail, Streeterville gets the first call, but the advantage will go to the favorite Last Episode, who's up and around her. Away in third is Kinza. Over the top, Sweet Rebecca. Who do you like here? 1/8 of a mile to go, and it's still Last Episode. Sweet Rebecca gobbling up good ground on the outside. Sweet Rebecca, this is a huge effort. Sweet Rebecca under light handling powers past Sweet Rebecca. Wow. That was so impressive. She won by a length after a lot of trouble.
I just love the hands on the neck. I mean, there was not even no whipping and flail, and it was all controlled. She finished up really nice in there. It looks like Brendan Walsh has a good one.
Last eighth and 11 flat. I know they all finished fast on that grass course, but still, 11 flat's 11 flat.
Mm-hmm.
And she was flying, and she was 2 lengths back at the eighth pole when that clock, the timer was stopped down. So very impressive. She is again a by American Pharaoh. Therefore, she is a full sister to Sweet Melania, who was a very good filly, grass filly. This one might be just as good down the road.
Okay.
Great family. The mare herself was the Florida Sunshine Millions Distaff winner. Second Dan produced Discreet Dancer. It was a very nice horse. Won the Gulfstream Park Handicap. Traveling Man won the Swale. I mean, it's a really good family. And with American Pharaoh fillies, most of whom were better than the Colts, quite frankly. This is a filly who won this race despite walking out of the gate, getting ranked, doing everything wrong to the clubhouse turn, still pulled into the backstretch, finally settled. And when she put her head down and said, okay, I think I figured this thing out. This is my first start, so give me a little bit of break here. But I think when she figured it out, this was a mismatch. I mean, and I can imagine this filly coming out of this race, being more professional next time, coming out of the gate better, dropping her head, and being the push button filly apparently that she is, and really being a monster in the division. We saw one out here we talked about in California, who won a stakes race here last weekend. Well, Sweet Rebecca is of that level, I believe, herself, and it'd be kind of neat to see these grass fillies hook up somewhere down the road and find out who's the best one.
Yeah, Maduro and Sweet Rebecca kind of bookending the show here. Our 5 topics are now official on the board because Jeff Siegel and I said so. The West Coast Girl Power was on display, the Beholder Mile with Sweet Azteca stretching out. She's going to head like Cece back to the sprint ranks. Kinza could be headed towards the big 3-year-old filly races not named the Kentucky Oaks after another dominant victory in the Santa Isabel. Maduro, as we just mentioned, a impressive winner, now 3 for 3 of the China Doll Stakes. The fallout from Tampa Bay, things did not go right on the tote board for anybody involved. And on the racetrack, it was slow early, but impressive through the wire for Domestic Product, the winner for trainer Chad Brown, as he heads to one more final prep before the Kentucky Derby. Our racetrack rumors, we swirled them up a little bit, used a little common sense and a little pattern recognition, if you will. Where's Nysos? We're going to find out in the next couple of weeks. Triple Crown Tracker took you to workouts from Hades for the Florida Derby in South Florida. And May Moon on the West Coast could be headed to any number of the big Triple Crown preps, Santa Anita, Oak Lawn, maybe the Bluegrass at Keeneland. Next up, we took a look at his work for Bob Befford at Santa Anita, and also the Triple Crown rankings, the new top 20, where Sierra Leone has displaced Nysos atop the rankings this week. And our stars of tomorrow were Vlahos, the fast sprinter for Louis Mendez at Santa Anita, and Sweet Rebecca, the sharp rallying turf winner on the grass at Gulfstream Park. That wraps up our edition of It's Official this week. Jeff and I will be back on Friday to do some weekend handicapping. Really nothing in the Triple Crown ranks that we're going to look at on the First Call podcast this Friday, Jeff, but we've got some good stakes at Laurel, another big stakes day on the West Coast at Santa Anita with a handful of major stakes races. So plenty of action around the country. We're just not going to see the 3-year-olds in big display this week.
Not this week, but still good racing. You mentioned a great card. I think there's 3 stakes at Laurel this weekend. They all look pretty competitive on Saturday. Santa Anita's got a couple of good stakes races as well. So we will be handicapping those and others on Friday on our First Call podcast, and then look forward to some great racing, and hopefully we can make some money.
If you like the jumpers, we got the Cheltenham Festival going on as well, Tuesday through Friday, started today. You can bet those races with First Bet and Express Bet, the premier British jump meet going on this week. And we've got a 10% exacta bonus. So on your winning exactas, you get an extra 10% put back into your account when you play with First Bet and Express Bet. So don't bet Cheltenham without doing it with us on those 2 platforms, First Bet and Express Bet, for the 10% exacta bonus. Jeff and I will be back on Friday. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you then.